Hey everyone! So, good news. I think I figured out the lighting for this room at nighttime. If you guys could tell from my last video, I look like a troll. Because the lighting is just horrible in this room. So I have redecorated, and I moved this little lamp right in front of my face so you guys can see me. Which is good because I'm actually doing a reveal today, which I've never done before, and hopefully it goes okay. But I bought something new for myself, and I told myself I wasn't going to. Last week I was supposed to save all of my paycheck, and I just couldn't resist it. I found it on, I'm being very elusive right now, but I found the thing I'm about to talk about, on Overstock actually. And Overstock is actually kind of a treasure trove of tarot decks, which is surprising. There were a few on there that I've had my eye on, and I haven't bought yet because, tarot decks can be expensive, at least for me. They can be upwards of like $20 to $30 sometimes, especially if you're gonna get one that's like really creative, like the Mary L Tarot, for example. But this I saw on there for like 16 bucks, which is only like a couple dollars cheaper, but I mean it adds up over time, right? Plus when you start considering like shipping and all this stuff. But anyway, before I open it up, and I've already kind of cheated and I've looked through it a little bit. So it's a kind of reveal, but I'm gonna call it a reveal just because I haven't actually used it yet, so I'm not really able to review it yet. Anyway, without further ado, I have here the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot, and I'm really excited about having it in my hands. I actually discovered Nicoletta Ceccoli a few years ago. I saw her page online. She has a whole website devoted to her paintings, which are just fascinating little glimpses into someone's mind, it seems like. If you're not familiar with her and her work, she does a lot of paintings that center around sort of childlike women. And they're definitely women because their bodies are like fully grown and all that stuff. But the childlike quality is in their face, as you can see on the front. That face is definitely like a child's face, and that like childlike quality features a lot in her work. Her paintings seem to come from a completely different planet, where adolescence and childhood seem to mix together with the sensuality of adulthood. And sensuality, I mean more than just sex, but also the senses. Visually it appeals to you. She also touches into food and into just very sensual kind of situations. And as I show you more images of the cards, you'll get to see that. But all of her paintings were created before this tarot deck was created. They weren't made specifically for this tarot deck. Someone went through her paintings, were inspired by them, and decided to try to see if they can fit them into the themes that are associated with the cards in tarot. This means that sometimes it's a little bit of some work to figure out exactly how the cards fit. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think probably people who are beginners to tarot are a little bit overwhelmed by that, simply because tarot, such as the Rider-Waite tarot deck, if you look at the images, you can see very clearly usually what that card is trying to say or what it represents. And so I think a lot of beginners probably see that as being easier. As opposed to some of these other tarot decks, where people have taken their own ideas of what that card means and manipulated it, so that way it represents that. But I think that beginners can use these cards, actually. I'm a firm believer in intuition, and I actually am going to make a video about intuition pretty soon, when I get a chance. But I'm a big believer in intuition, and I think that when you're first starting out, intuition is actually your best friend when it comes to tarot. Intuitively looking at the cards and just seeing how you feel based on the images, it's actually kind of a gift. I think people who have been reading tarot for a really long time can kind of lose track of what they first felt when they looked at whatever card they might be looking at. And a lot of their definitions might be weighed down already, already put into stone. When you're just starting out, you have so much of an opportunity to kind of gather new information and new ideas about different cards and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And the same thing can be said about a deck like this, which has images associated with cards that weren't specifically made for those cards. So looking at them and recognizing that these images weren't made specifically for these cards, it gives your brain a little bit of a workout. And hopefully once you finish that workout, you come out with maybe a more complex understanding of that card. I think most people understand what the Rider-Waite tarot deck, for example, is trying to say when it shows, the Hermit as an older man standing by himself with a lantern. In this deck, it's actually represented by a girl who is half girl, half snail, with her eyes closed, circling after a miniature-sized version of herself. There's some similarities, but obviously huge differences as well. And it really allows you, I think, to think creatively about that card. And I don't know exactly what sort of thoughts it might create for you. I haven't started to do any readings with them. I've not let myself do that yet until I can make this reveal video. But once I do, I'll make a review video, and I'll talk about some of my ideas about the cards and how I think they are represented differently as opposed to other decks. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to open them up and show you some of the cards and talk about some of the differences, because there actually are some differences here in this deck. Sorry, speaking is difficult for me. But as to the names of certain cards, how they're represented, beyond just the images. I'm gonna actually show you first the major arcana, and then maybe the kings, the queens, the knights, and the pages. But anyway, this is the Fool, and as you can see, it just has 0 for the name. It doesn't actually say the Fool. This is something else that I think beginners, and I'm a beginner, I'm not going to shy away from that title just yet, but I'm a beginner, and it's something that does terrify me a little bit, and I think probably for most beginners it does the same thing. Simply because most of us are not that knowledgeable yet about the ascent of the cards, numerically. So it makes your brain think a little bit more, and I'll probably have to look up some of the major arcana in this anyway as I go along. The Fool, I think, is one of those cards that it does make sense, immediately upon looking at it. It's not one of the cards in this deck that kind of comes out of nowhere and throws you for a loop. You can definitely see that this character in here, this half girl, half drum, is on some kind of adventure. She's just leaving. She's going somewhere. This is the beginning for her, which are all, huge qualities of the Fool, always, in every deck. I actually just recently watched a video by Arwen in which she reviewed this deck, and she said that she felt like there wasn't enough. Well, she pointed out the wheels a little bit, and talked about how they don't look like they can move. So she felt like it represented a Fool that seemed to be on a path that was too straightforward, which I can see. I think usually the Fool, they're kind of, there's so much stretched out before them, so much land, that you really get that concept of endless possibilities. Whereas I think in this card, you don't really see very much behind her. It's a very static kind of pose that she's in, and Arwen is correct in saying that she is basically just going in one straight path. So that's definitely something to think about. The next card is the Magician. And I think that this card is really cool. It definitely makes you think, like all the cards do, about what exactly this card is trying to say. You know, I think the Magician, he's often represented as having lots of different tools. And I think that those tools can very easily be retranslated as an element of shape-shifting, of being able to take on different roles. And so it's kind of a leap, but I think that this does definitely represent the Magician's abilities to take on different roles in your life or someone else's life. So yeah, and it's in general just a really pretty card. The colors in this deck are really beautiful, so soft and just really inviting, I think. And it's nice on your eyes. This card is really pretty and probably one of my favorites. This is the High Priestess. And there's just something that's very regal about her, I think. I love that she is this mountain, which I think connects to her intuition, which is so big in this card. It's all about, specifically, I think, female intuition, but anyone's intuition, really. Intuition, to me, reminds me of the ancients, reminds me of the earth, reminds me of the goddess, and her representing herself in your life through your consciousness, or your subconsciousness. And so I think that this card really captures that very well, in connecting her as she is to the earth, to the mountain, to that ancient source of knowledge, which is the land, and therefore the goddess, Gaia. The next card in the Major Arcana is the Empress, and I really, really like this card. The Empress is always really always shown as being motherly or sensual or caring, overflowing with emotion, and being this kind of passive woman, as embodying the passive feminine qualities. This kind of turns it on its head a little bit. It still shows the Empress being all about nature and about nurture and about caring for people and for things. But in this way, that care is kind of represented as scientific. It's represented as being more scientific, as if she is like actively going out into the world to discover more about the way that it ticks, or the way that it moves or functions, which I think connects really, really well to like emotional intelligence, because the way that we interact with the world, the way that we interact with people and with animals, it all stems from that emotional intelligence, and it's all about trying to understand more about the way that people tick and the way that people think, if that makes sense. So I totally get this this ethnographer kind of feel from her in this card. And the Emperor's next. This is the only guy in the whole deck. There isn't any more even represented in the King's cards or the Knight's cards or the Page's cards. Everyone else is a woman. I don't really have a lot to say about this, other than that it's striking that he's the only man, which probably, says something about the Emperor card. He's like a little Bonaparte here. It taps into that masculine energy. It actually kind of looks a little bit tyrannical and maybe a little bit. I know this whole deck kind of revolves around that conflict of young and old and things like that. But this to me just especially screams old young and kind of bratty. So I don't know. I'll have to sit on this card and see how I feel. This card I really, really like, because let's be real for a second. I don't really like the Hierophant card. I've never liked the Hierophant card. To me, the Hierophant card has always represented the kind of old, stuck in his ways kind of man that I hate. I deal with a lot of those guys at my job as a customer service manager, and let me tell you, it is not fun. Because they're all about tradition, and they have this like weird like entitled mentality that I cannot deal with. So this card is just perfect, I think, because although tradition can be important at times, and certainly I do find myself enjoying traditional things, such as traditional ways of celebrating Halloween or like Christmas or whatever. But for the most part, traditional morals, traditional ways of living, traditional ideals of living, not so ideal, really. And yeah, so I think the monkey here, the stuffed monkey, just represents my feelings of those kind of ideals perfectly, which is they're kind of stupid. Yeah. Also, I think probably a lot of people in positions that are similar to the Hierophant kind of had that monkey mentality, as if the monkey is pulling the ropes. This card is interesting. This is the Lover's card. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. Do you guys see there's a snake and a girl? Usually this card has a man and a woman. But I guess the girl and the snake are representing the lovers, and it kind of has a I don't want to say negative, but there's like a foreboding kind of tone to this card that I don't necessarily associate with the lovers at all. Let me know, what you guys think of this card. Maybe there's something I missed in here, but it's a beautiful card though. I really enjoy. There's a lot of images of girls coming out of trees or being part girl, part tree, and they all really resonate with me just because I secretly want to be a tree. The next card is the Chariot. This one's pretty straightforward. It is really similar to a lot of other Chariot cards in other decks. Let me see, I'll skip ahead. I think, if I remember correctly, I might be wrong, I think this is Judgment? I feel like this is Judgment, because I remember looking at this card and thinking that she just looks like she's residing over a kingdom and judging it all. So I really think that this one is Judgment, but correct me if I'm wrong. If it is Judgment, I think it fits perfectly with the ideas and concepts of that card. So yeah. This is the Hermit, which I already talked about. I think it's very cool. It's kind of a calming kind of card. I think it really taps into this idea of meditation, of the repetition of meditation. When you meditate, there is often phrases that you repeat to yourself, or you hum to yourself, or you click bells, or different things that kind of the repetition of those things kind of help you tap into the unconscious parts of yourself, and get into that meditative kind of state. And repetition, the reason why I bring that up is obviously this snail girl has been going around in circles for however long she has been. And so that's what makes me think of the repetition. I don't know how I feel about the miniature version of her, the duplicates here. I don't know exactly what that might mean. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, it's a very cool card. This is the Wheel of Fortune. This card really taps into the ideas of that, of chance, of allowing things to happen, come what may, things like that. It's a very cool card too. Now, this I think... Oh, no. Oh man, I wonder if this is Judgment. This might be Judgment. I don't remember though. So I won't talk about it just because I could be wrong about it. That might be Judgment. I'll put a correction in the bottom when I get a chance to look it out. This is the Hangman. Also a cool card. It would take me a moment to think about what could be the possible meaning behind the two heads here. But you guys can't really tell because my camera sucks. But they're actually on a swing, so that does tie into the hanged quality. I'll have to think about. It doesn't really offer a lot to think about in regards to the Hangman. It doesn't really offer a lot of different contributions. It seems like mostly they chose this image simply because they were hanging on a swing. So you'd probably have to work a little bit harder to come up with, the meaning behind this. That would be different from other meanings that card has. This card is death. Arvin also talked about this card in her video, which maybe I'll link in the bottom because I've been referencing it. And she talked about how she was kind of stuck on it. I think she was stuck on this whole deck, and I get why she is. This card, I think, really makes a lot of sense. Obviously, this is Snow White. You have the 7 dwarves and the apple, and she is essentially feigning death. She wasn't really dead. And I don't think that the death card usually represents actual death. It usually represents a transformation. And so after Snow White feigned death, when she came back back alive due to the kiss from the prince, she was transformed from a normal girl into a princess. So I think that this is actually very fitting of the death card. This card is actually my card, my birth card. This is Temperance. And I don't usually like the Temperance card, how it looks. This I do, though. The description in the book was actually a very beautiful description of the card, and I think I will read that to you real quick, if you guys don't mind. Temperance, let's see. I was right about Justice before, and that card that I thought might have also been Justice was actually Strength, which maybe I'll bring that card back out and talk about again, because I don't necessarily associate that with Strength. Anyway, so basically this card in the book represents to them blending earthly and spiritual, the earthly and the spiritual within you. And I never really connected with the Temperance card that much, and it made me feel kind of bad because it's supposed to be my birth card. And I never really thought that it represented me. But when I read about it blending the earthly with the spiritual, I feel like that is like totally what I'm all about, especially right now in my life. And so you have the tangibility of the goldfish here, but then the ethereal quality of her hair lifting up and the fish flying or swimming in the air, and the mist behind her. And so I think it captures that blend of the earthly with the spiritual very, very well. Also, it's just a really beautiful card. It's very calming to look at, I think. Let me bring the Strength card back out, just because I do have some ideas about that, now that I know that it's the Strength card. I like the image. I don't like it for Strength. It comes across more to me as brute strength, and I've always associated the Strength card with more stereotypically effeminate qualities, as those qualities being the ultimate decider of a situation, maybe, of being the, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, with the Strength card, I think the symbolism there is just really beautiful in general. I've always really resonated with the Strength card. It actually, and this is just because I've been reading a book about Pocahontas recently, but it actually kind of reminds me of Pocahontas, of this like feminine energy confronting the masculine energy, and of these feminine ideas or concepts such as peace and passivity and care and nurture, as being what is the most important quality to have, I think. Using that to fix a situation, to calm an opponent, to do any number of things, as those qualities being like the one true strength. That's how I see that card anyway. And this card, I think, kind of goes against that. It represents to me more of those masculine ideas of violence and of brute strength, like I said. So I don't know, I'm not really thrilled with that. Although it is a pretty image. And of course, when I talk about, masculine and feminine, I just mean like the stereotypical idea of the concept of masculine or feminine. Anyone can hold those qualities and have those be a part of their character, not just a man or not just a woman. This is the devil. Yeah, it's an interesting card. It's an evil parsnip man trying to lick a woman who's fainted. And yeah, that's cool. That seems pretty devilish to me. This is... I don't remember. It is... the tower. Oh, duh. Obviously. I mean, it represents a tower. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of destruction happening, which I think the destruction is what I always most associate with the tower. But obviously this is a tower, now that I know, because there is a tower being represented in the image. This is the star, and this is a really beautiful card. It's probably one of my favorites in the deck. Although when I first saw it, I actually thought the moon, just obviously she has a moon for her head. But when you see the moon card, which is next, you'll see why they chose this one as a star and the other one as the moon. But yeah, I think it's really beautiful. I don't really have much more to say than it is really beautiful. So yeah. This is the moon card. Also a beautiful card. What I really like about this is that, first of all, it connects the moon with the water. Obviously the moon is usually connected with the water, but sometimes I feel like water is left out of the tarot decks that I've seen. But the water has another effect, which is hiding something. You see a little bit, there's some bird bones peeking out of the water, but you don't see what's underneath it. Something is hidden, and I think that ties very well into the ideas that the moon holds, or the ideas that the moon represents, which is reflective of like going into yourself, examining your thoughts, finding out who your shadow self is. And so I think that card represents those qualities very well. This is the sun. I'm fairly certain that they only really chose this because she is round and yellow like a sun, but she isn't actually a sun. So yeah, I'm conflicted about this card. I wish it was a little bit more happier, but I'll take what I can get. And this is, I don't remember what this one is. Let's see. Judgment. I think it represents judgment very, very well. She seems to be a woman of authority, mostly by her size, but she is looking down on someone, and he seems to be... I get a very, like, Queen of Hearts feel from this. I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's, like, a little rabbit down there, and he reminds me of the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. And I imagine them holding court, so I just get that court-like feel from this card. This is the world. And it represents the world. I think the thing that bothers me about this card is that she seems trapped, and I don't associate entrapment with the world. The world is like the culmination of everything, of knowledge, of emotional intelligence, of all these different things that are supposed to make you feel like you've reached a greater understanding of something. But then maybe on the flip side of that, if you feel as though you have learned everything that there is to learn, felt everything that there is to feel within the world, you might feel kind of weighed down by that, as if you can't escape the world, as if you discovered everything. That can be kind of lonesome, maybe. So maybe it just offers a different perspective on what the world is. So it might be a good world card. Now I'm going to show you some of the minor arcana. What is interesting is the way that the aces are represented. And I'm going to pull them out for you real quick. They have kind of a similar theme going on. There's actually a similar theme going on with quite a few of the different numbered cards. Aces are typically represented by a single person. The tens seem to be represented by kind of grand scenes of motion. So maybe I'll show you some tens too, but I'm not sure. This video is already getting very, very long. Is it the no? I think I have one more. I have the cups, the wands, the pentacles was what I'm missing. Is that it? Yeah, okay, so this is it. So, sorry about that, but here are the aces. As you can see, this is the Ace of Swords, and it's just a single girl, which I think is very much associated with my idea of that singularity is very much attached to my idea of the ace, which, you know, usually, like for example, the Ace of Cups is just one cup and it's overflowing. So this idea of the one is very good. Swords represent, you know, intelligence. It represents, I don't know why my camera just did that. There we go. But it represents intelligence, it represents words, it represents thoughts in the wind, or the air. And I think that this is actually accomplished very well in this card. It's like, because she's eating this lollipop, and she's eating actually the brain aspect of the lollipop. It's actually pretty gruesome if you think about it. But it's almost like she's sucking the intellectual life force of this lollipop, and he obviously is very concerned about that. So I think that actually accomplishes it very, very well. This is the Ace of Cups. This is a very cool card, actually. Arwen was, I think, a little bit stumped by it, and she said that she didn't like it that much, but I think it actually represents the cups very well, the Ace of Cups very well. Like I said before, most tarot decks represent the Ace of Cups as being a singular cup overflowing, and you know, it's supposed to be the overflowing water is supposed to be representative of emotions and love, and so here you have a singular girl. Her arm is overflowing with miniature versions of herself, which hold their own emotions, their own feelings. And so I get this feeling of being maybe overwhelmed by your emotions, maybe being a little bit confused by the many different directions that your emotions can take you. I think there are probably a lot of different interpretations that you can have with this card. This is the Ace of Pentacles. I really just like the colors in this. The gold and the red, it's very pretty. There's something that seems very aged about it. I don't know how I feel about the egg. It's a golden egg. I guess money connected with life. I don't know. There's something there, I think, but I'd have to think about it a little bit more. So I'll get back to you guys on that one. This one's actually one of my favorite aces. This is the Ace of Clubs, or Wands, and it's actually the one that you can find on the front of the deck. And here you see a little girl holding a salamander to her breast. And this is a cool card because, and I didn't necessarily get it when I first saw it, but then I remembered that salamanders are actually connected with fire, and as you all know, wands are connected with fire as well. And so I get a sense of yearning and of passion from this. So yeah, I like this card a lot. And next I'll show you the kings, queens, the pages, and the knights. Now in this deck, they actually don't, like the major arcana, label the pages, the queens, and the knights and the kings. They have a little symbol at the bottom, like a crown or a helmet, and you kind of had to memorize, what that is actually aligned with, so that way you can understand which card it is. Which, I mean, is fine. Once you memorize what those are, it's no big deal. Let's see, that is, here we go. For some reason, I feel like Arwen's video took like half the length of mine video is taking, and she went through the entire deck, and I'm not even doing that, so I don't know what my deal is. Okay, so those are all the queens. So this here is the Page of Cups. And with these, I've noticed that they don't necessarily relate very much with the pages or with the knights or, with whatever card they're supposed to be representing, beyond very, I think, shallow ways. So here you have a girl, and she's in water because of cups. It just doesn't say a lot about the actual meaning of the card, although it is pretty to look at. Here is the knight. All of the knights are actually on some kind of steed, which I think is very good. As Arwen pointed out in her video, they also were very good in choosing which images of riders they had for each card. Some of them have riders on horses whose feet are firmly placed on the ground, who aren't moving, while others, like this one, they're actually moving and making some action. So I think with these ones, they're a little bit more accomplished at actually showing the personality of the card that they're representing. This is the Queen of Cups. You got the little fish representing water. And then they're kissing, so it represents love and emotions too. This is a very regal, very pretty card. This is the King of Cups. Like I said, the only male in this deck is the Emperor, so all the kings are actually represented by women. And here you can see that masculine energy being represented in, the Voyager, the dragon, the action being committed, which is her dragging her dress. There's a lot of movement here, a lot of active energy, which is cool. I like it when decks do this because I don't think that just women can be feminine or just men can be masculine. I think anyone can be anything. And so it's cool when those ideas can kind of be bent and applied to a different gender. So yeah, because I think that regardless of whether you call it a king or a queen, you can know that this is what it represents and this can be applied to anyone. So let's see what is next. Okay, these are backwards. So next we have the Pentacles. This is the Page of Pentacles. This is another favorite card of mine. I just think it's very beautiful. I like the idea of a sprout representing a page because I think sprouts represent the beginning of something just like the pages represent the beginning of something. And so I think that fit is very fitting for the page right here. It's just a very peaceful card to look at. Very pretty. Here's another knight. This is actually the card that Arwen mentioned about the way that the different steeds stand. All the legs of the steed are firmly planted on the ground, which represent the Knight of Pentacles very well, because it's actually one of the slower knights. The knight is usually more methodical in his working, or her working, as the case is here. This is the Queen of Pentacles. I like this card because it very subtly hones in on this idea of sensuality, of luxury, of tangible items, such as the ice cream that she's eating. So yeah, it's a good card. And this is probably my favorite representation of any of the kings in this deck. I think it captures the qualities of a king in general very, very well here. Let's see. Next we have the Wands. This is the Page of Wands. Not my favorite deck, or favorite card, really. It's very, reminds me of a little bit of the images that we would post on our MySpace pages back in 8th grade. You know, a little bit emo, a little bit gothic. Not my favorite. Maybe it just gives me too many flashbacks. This is the Knight of Wands. Gotta like that pig. And here is the Queen of Wands. I don't necessarily get Queen of Wands in this image. I don't see any creativity or any example of passion. Maybe passion, I don't know. No, I don't really get the Queen of Wands in this. And here is another king, King of Wands. Very, very similar to the King of Pentacles, I think was the other one that I pulled up. So it's cool that they kept similar themes among some of the cards. This is the Page of, what is that, Swords? This is the Page of Swords. I like this one because you get this feeling of ascent from her as if she's just taken off. And the swords, as you know, are really associated with air, with thoughts, with and being intellectual, with words, and relationships, really. And so I think that all of that, those airy qualities are being well represented in her taking off and her flying, beginning her journey into the air here. This is the Knight of Swords. Once again, she's in the air, she's flying, tying it back into that theme of the swords. Now we have the Queen of Swords. Queen of Swords is actually one of my favorite cards in tarot, so I'm always a little bit harsh whenever I see the image for that card. And this isn't necessarily my favorite, although I think I mean, obviously she has like a knife in her hand, which, you know, ties into the image of the sword. If anything, I see that she has something that's kind of living, that she's eating, so I think it ties into that quality of the Queen of Swords to be maybe a little bit, not necessarily selfish, but maybe unconcerned about the well-being of others, so long as they don't align with the things that she wants, or that she feels is the right way to do things, if that makes sense. And this is the King of Swords. I like that she's riding. Once again, ties it into the words. Something about this that just seems like very mythic, as if the way that the pages are flying and that her hair is moving, it captures this idea that words can actually create change or create action. It seems like whatever she's putting down on the page is causing the environment around her to shift and change. So I think that captures the qualities of the king very well. And that's pretty much it. I forgot to show you guys the back of the cards. That's what they look like. They're reversible. That's all I'm going to show you guys just because this video is so long. You know, the images are basically on Google. If you want to look at more of them, you should, because they're all really, really beautiful. Like I said, Nicoletta Ceccoli actually has a website filled with all of her paintings, so you can see them really, really huge. There's a lot of detail in them, so I strongly suggest that you do that. Some closing thoughts. I think it's a really beautiful deck. I think that a lot of people are probably going to have trouble with understanding what the images mean, as for what they pertain to the card that they're representing. But I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that the fact that these paintings are made before the tarot deck was made, and that they had the paintings, they tried to make the paintings align to the concepts as best they could, can actually be a benefit, because it can change your preconceived notions of what these cards mean, and help you develop a complexity to your own interpretation. So don't be too afraid by that, I don't think, or too scared of that. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. I do have another video planned where I want to talk about a little bit about intuition and the importance of that, so hopefully I can get that up maybe tomorrow. I think I have some time tomorrow. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.